And finally, it's been a little more than a month since the death of author Kurt Vonnegut. I met Vonnegut in November 2005 for what turned out to be one of his last interviews. He did not want to talk about some of the more tragic aspects of his life, his mother's suicide, or his time in Dresden, Germany in 1945, when he witnessed the intense Allied firebombing of the city, a subject that formed the basis of his most famous work, Slaughterhouse-Five. But on a number of other topics, I found Vonnegut as his readers found him through the years. Intriguing, funny, sardonic, memorable. In his last years, both in his public speaking, interviews, and his writing, Kurt Vonnegut did not go quietly.
President Bush is so dumb that it wouldn't surprise me if he thought Peter Pan was a wash basin in a whorehouse. I call myself a man without a country. Indeed, I can't be proud of a country with public schools as terrible as ours are. They're the worst in the highest dropout rate in the industrial world, and also our infant mortality rate, because our care of the poor is so bad.
When I interviewed Vonnegut, he was promoting his last book, A Man Without a Country, which he described as a glass of champagne at the end of an old man's life. He was reflective about his career, his good fortune, and the impact he had on many of his readers.
Each of us writes what he must write, and then it's up to see, you just simply wait to see whether there's an audience for it or not. And I was lucky, I found an audience, and so hooray, but I have known perfectly wonderful writers who have crashed and burned, ended in total poverty.
Kurt Vonnegut was born and raised in Indianapolis. He enlisted in the Army during World War II, fought in Europe, and was captured by the Nazis. He wrote that he was in an underground meat locker making vitamin supplements when the Allied carpet bombing of Dresden began. When he emerged, death was all around him. It would be more than 20 years before Vonnegut could write about his experience, as described by the character Billy Pilgrim in his 1969 novel, Slaughterhouse-Five. It wasn't safe to come out of the shelter until noon the next day. When the Americans and their guards did come out, the sky was black with smoke. The sun was an angry little pinhead. Dresden was like the moon now, nothing but minerals. The stones were hot. Everybody else in the neighborhood was dead. So it goes.
I don't think any artist knows why he does anything. It's not that rational. And so this stuff comes pouring out of us.
Slaughterhouse-Five came out as the fervor against the war in Vietnam was peaking. The book and Vonnegut became synonymous with that time. Not that he could explain its success or the popularity of any of his other books.
I sit there, this person named me, and this stuff starts coming out, and I write it down. But my wastebaskets are full. Again and again, that's no good, that's no good. But I've been lucky enough that good stuff has come out, and so I'm very fortunate that this stuff comes pouring out of me.
Vonnegut became known as a writer who questioned nothing less than the meaning of our daily lives. And yet before his literary success, just after World War II, he held what might be called an establishment job. Can you picture Kurt Vonnegut as public relations executive for General Electric in Schenectady? He loved it.
My job was to support a family. And actually this wasn't corrupt at all, because General Electric then was a wonderful company. And it was American industry at its best. Machinists then in Schenectady were treated as though they were great musicians. Is because what they did was so delicate, so skilled. And so I saw American manufacturing at its best, and we were a family.
Another job that you might not associate with Vonnegut, even after his initial success writing in the 60s, he had a Saab dealership on Cape Cod.
I think I was writing Rosewater while I was waiting for customers to come in. And
excuse me, I'll be with you in 1 second. I just need to finish this chapter.
No, but I did my best and treated customers well. And it's a business story of the year, I think, because I only lost $50,000.
Vonnegut's ability to laugh at himself and his literary status was on display when he appeared in the 1986 Rodney Dangerfield film, Back to School. Dangerfield's character hires Vonnegut to write a paper about Vonnegut.
Hi, I'm Kurt Vonnegut. I'm looking for Thornton Mellon.
He handed it in to his teacher. He says, I know two things. One, you didn't write this. Two, you don't know the first thing about Vonnegut.
Vonnegut said that life had been very good to him, but absolutely horrible for so many others. He had what he called a survivor syndrome, feeling guilty to be alive and successful. When asked about that success, he recalled a conversation he had with a man who once did some work on his house on Cape Cod.
Finally it was done, and he called me out. He said, come here. So he stood out and looked at it from a distance of about 20 feet. He said, how the hell did I do that? And I think anybody who's done a good piece of work feels that way. How the hell did I do that?
In Slaughterhouse-Five, after each death, Vonnegut used a specific phrase, a phrase that has frequently come to mind in the months since his death. And so it goes.